Hello friends and welcome back. In this lecture we are going to learn about rendering in Magento 2. This is going to be a complex lecture and there may be various things that you need to understand with a reduced scope. So what actually we are going to do in here is we are going to understand Magento's rendering via controller, layout, blocks and PSTML and their combination, how we are going to return our outputs in our real-time projects, and what are the basics of Magento's rendering. We will be looking into the code in a manner that you show something in your browser's page. But Magento's rendering is a very big and complicated concept, so we have to build some basic understanding of that. So there will be various things in this lecture here and there that will not directly relate to the code, but I will be only speaking and in a manner that you will be building your understanding to various core things. What we are actually going to do in this lecture is, first of all, we will be discussing for at least 5 minutes to build our foundation. Magento 2's rendering system is incorporated in a manner that Magento 1's rendering system is pulled and placed into Magento 2. Then Magento 2's layer architecture is selected, and the whatever things we pulled from Magento 1 were introduced into that layered architecture. So overall combination became very vast, and as a developer, if you will see, whatever Magento 1's developer has done to build their understanding, you will have to do that as well, plus the layered architecture's abstraction that made this concept more complicated. You will have to understand that as well. This is again coming in action on every areas in Magento 2. If you see service contract, they are further rendered using Magento's rendering engine. You see the Knockout.js output or your views output, everything is coming on the client side using rendering system only. Next thing is we are going to look into two screenshots that will give you the basic idea how Magento's rendering system works, and we will be spending decent time on these two. Then we will be going into the code and will show certain outputs on our browser's front end using our controllers, layout and PSTML files, and then calling blocks function and so on. And also we will be building our understanding how when a task comes to you from a client or from your project manager, then how you will be compiling it into your approach to work with Magento's rendering system. Then we will be discussing certain key pointers for that are really very useful for you to share your knowledge with someone, or that will give you a boost when you will speak these pointers against someone, and they will see that yeah, this person has certain knowledge, and simultaneously they are going to be coming in your exams. Then again we will be having a discussion on finalizing certain approaches. There are various ways to implement the same thing in rendering system. Let's say 5 different ways to implement the same output or to achieve the same output, and none of the way is wrong as far as Magento is concerned, but we will be selecting our the method that suits us the most. So let's go to the first point where we will be discussing for 5 minutes about building our foundations. And here I have a untitled document. So the thing is, Magento 2 rendering system is actually coming from Magento 1 only. So all those people who has some understanding about Magento 1 rendering system, they know that there were two things. And if you don't have Magento 1's rendering systems understanding, don't worry. There were actually two things. One is load layout and the other thing is render layout. So when we have discussed this couple of times, that overall XML output is combined together and then the final XML is created that further results into the output. So just understand this in a way that you have various layouts file in your Magento, and that for that we call them layout handlers. So you have various layout handlers in Magento they all come and combine together into one file, and then the finalized file is created, all the layouts are loaded, and then based on that finalized file, let's say you are on xyz index url on your browser, so your particular layout will be selected, and based on that your output is loaded. So your based on your url or your entry point, I should say, your layout is loaded, and then render layout means your layout is shown onto the front end or the output is displayed. Here you can say you are pushing values in your variables, and here you are spitting that values out. Okay, hope you will get that. In Magento 1 there were various layout handlers, and let's say you had one file which is config node, which starts from config node, and the second node were layout handler. Now in Magento 2 what has been done is they have removed all the layout handlers, but what they have done is they have created separate file for all those layout handlers. So in Magento 1 you may have a layout handler, let's say that is LITOVE, which was our module that we created in previous lecture, and index was our index folder, and then index controller. So this may be our layout for Magento 1, but in Magento 2 this has been a XML file now. So all the layout handlers from Magento 1 are now the XML files, and these all XML files again combined together and actually goes back to the same place where you have where in Magento 1 you had load layout thing. So again everything is combined together, but earlier they were in the same file, but now they are in separate files. So we are on our first why they are on the separate file, because one file should have one responsibility. Okay, this is a really good concept, and Magento is following that. Second thing is that it abstracts various things that you don't need to understand or don't need to manipulate in your code, but it gives you flexibility of those things that you need to change. So whenever you divide thing into various other part, it makes thing easier for you to perform certain change, or abstract the things that you don't need to change. So Magento has decided couple of things that you can't change, and certain things that you can easily change. That is really helpful, where you split files into various files. So now you know that in Magento 1 we had the one long file which was created using layout handlers, and in Magento 2 you will have separate layout handler files. So first thing here is we will be creating a file in today's lecture that will be our liTOVE index, which will be our layout handler for our index controller. Now next thing is Magento 1's layout system has been implemented in Magento 2, where if let's say I create one more file, liTOVE index and test, which will be for my URL domain name /liTOVE/index/test action. So this file will be automatically called by Magento's rendering system. Magento will load all the files previously, and then when my URL is hit, based on my URL it will either select or this file or this file, and based on that it will load that layout, and if they have certain child blocks or child HTML, they will also be loaded, and the final output is rendered on browser. Now whenever we discuss the overall layout file, and when this layout file is loaded, so what happens is, first of all your containers are loaded. Magento has three things that we need to understand. First is container, blocks and templates. Containers are the bigger area or the layouts of your page, where you say you have a left sidebar, or actually let's do this in this manner. You have one thing which is layout. Okay, the second thing you have is container, the third thing is block, and then the templates. So layout are actually your header block is a layout, your left sidebar is a layout, is a part of layout, your main container and then footer. There are four possible layout which we know, that one column, two column with left sidebar, two column with right sidebar, and three column. So that are actually layout. But if you create the layout file, let's say you've created a box for header, and if you fill in the color, that means that is the container for header. Whatever you can enter in your layout will be done using containers only. Container can have child containers as well, or container can directly have blocks as well. Block can further have certain child blocks as well. So in Magento 2 we have layouts which are basically 5. We have empty, we have one column, two column left, two column right, and three column. Then we have the containers in which will be splitting the output on front end. So whatever entering will be actually happening will be done in container. So if you attach your block to the container that is echoed on website's front end, then your block's output will be echoed. So essentially what you will be doing is you will be creating a block class, and then you will be attaching a template to that particular block class. So let's say you create a block class named as index, and you create a template. Your block class will have an extension of .php, and then you create a template file in your view folder, let's say index.html. So what you will be doing is you will be creating a template file which is index.html, and will be linking that to the block index.php, and then finally linking that block to a particular container, which this container is by default from Magento is output is showing their output on website's front end. So let's say you have the content, you have a container in Magento named as content, or a head container, or a footer container. So if you create a block and attach it to the content container, your output will be displayed in the content section of Magento, where you have CMS blocks output. So essentially what you will be doing again is you will be creating a layout for your module or your front page. It can be among these 5. Empty we will not consider, so among these 4. And then you will be creating a PHTML and block files. You will be attaching the template file with that block, and then you will be passing that block to a container. And then your container is actually echoed on Magento's front end, so your block will show the output on Magento's front end as well. So now next thing is what we are actually going to do in Magento. We are going to do one thing only, which is passing the data into our block so that our output can be shown on front end via containers. Now how you going to link your blocks and containers, which is the next big question. And for that what we are going to do is we are going to use one thing that is known as layout handlers. So layout handler will have this responsibility to connect your containers to blocks, or blocks to PHTML. But this is not mandatory. You can connect your blocks to PHTML via certain other methods as well, and simultaneously you can give me a minute, let me start charging a couple of my devices, and then I'll be back. Thank you. Okay, so I'm back. Thing is, my phone is not charged and I need it to be charged. Okay, now where were we? Yes, so you can connect your blocks to container via layout handlers, and you can connect your blocks to PHTML via layout handlers as well. But there are other ways to do the same thing, and that's why I told you in starting that we can do one thing via various other methods, and we will not be committing onto one particular technique, but will be understanding everything that can be done, and then later on you will be deciding that what approach you need to take. This is why this lecture is going to be one of the biggest lecture of this course as well. Now let's go to The other point, and where we are going to learn about two screenshots and we'll see how Magento's rendering works. So first of all, I think, okay, so basically in Magento you can say there are two types of rendering. And okay, just read this line. In Magento 2 we have two rendering systems that are important. One of them provides the rendering layout and operates similar to Magento 1, and the second one is based on page objects. Okay, so now let me go back to my screenshot one. So there are two types of rendering in Magento 2. First is similar to Magento 1, where we are loading all our HTML together and then splitting our output on browser, or we are using page objects or rendering objects or result objects. So this is how Magento 2 has implemented this. Now your index file is called here, let's say, and then you go to your bootstrapping and then your app launches. After that you go to front controller, and the dispatch function of front controller is called. Front controller is also a design pattern that Magento has implemented. We will be discussing that in separate lecture if I feel that is needed for your course. Now front controller's dispatch function is called, and then action is dispatched, and then your controller's execute function is called. So in Magento 2 you will see that almost all the controllers will have only one function, that is execute. Rather they are needed for their internal functioning. There may be a couple of other functions for their internal functioning, but the execute function will be there in almost all the controllers to be executed by default by Magento. So you create a controller, you create an execute function that will be automatically called. Now in your execute function, what you will be essentially doing is you will be creating a instance of result factory class, and then will be returning that will be returned to again execute function, then will be passed back and back and back. Again you are on a place where your app launch function is called, and then you will be flushing the output on front end, or I should say Magento will be flushing output on the front end using render result method of page class. So this is a method in which you are going through the whole system of your controllers chain. You are when you select your controller and dispatch function, then between these two places your routing comes into action. Your all route.xmls are merged, they are checked, and based on that controller is decided, then its execute function is called, and then the result factory object is created and is passed back to the whole system, and then again the system calls this render result function, and the response is returned on your browser. But why Magento has selected this particular approach? The reason is Magento is vastly adopting the service dependent architecture or service based architecture, where right now whatever you are seeing in Magento is based on controllers, or your front end outputs are returned. But essentially throughout the Magento development they will be creating more service contracts, and data will be coming through the APIs only. But you have the cron functionality as well. Simultaneously you have a couple of other types of entry points in Magento as well. So here you can go all the way to one place to just build your results, and then the final rendering on browser is responsible, or only one class is responsible for final rendering. So here we are, let's say we are displaying some output on Magento's front end. You are going all the way to this step and coming back and passing data to app launch, and app launch is giving that output via render result. And let's say you have a API that is following all the different methods, getting their data back to app launch, and the data is passed to final result rendering where you will be getting the JSON data. Or you have a cron that uses a completely separate set of methods or set of process, where let's say here you have a layout.xml combination, but in your APIs you will have a web API.xml combination. So, or in cron you have cron tab.xml combination. All the files will be merged. So you have various things that needs to be done. So by this approach Magento has done is they have given their way to create things separately, and then the final rendering is responsible by only one thing. So that helps Magento. If they needs to change anything on the final rendering, they can just do this. If you need to stop something in your application, you just need to stop one area of work. Let's say you just don't want your website to be running via website. You just need your application. You can completely stop this thing and your API will be completely functional. So there are various advantages of this approach, and hope I was able to make a better understanding on that. But if you go to the traditional approach, where what has been done is, you enter into your Magento's application, then the render result function of page class, or we will be creating page factories are called. Then the render function is called. Render function is responsible for building our output and displaying onto the front end. Public build is really very important function for exams point of view. I would suggest you to dig into this function and how this function responds to, or how this function is important to create the overall output. Now next is, after render, the render page and append body is called, and the front end output is flushed. And in between this, include root template means Magento's root template is included so that the final layout structure can be decided. But it is a one-way approach. But the other one was not a one-way approach. It was kind of a two-way approach, where you go all the way here, come back, and then flush the output. But here you are only flushing the output in one go. So I gave you the understanding of both the approaches, and in Magento 2 this is the new approach. So ideally we will be pushing things into this, but we will also see how this is going to work with Magento 2 as well. So we will be looking into the code for both of these, and just for ease of our understanding, I'm splitting this lecture into two parts. So see you soon in next lecture. Bye.